that there's a crew in town. The head hillbillies are making their rounds. Small town whispers loud and clear. The sheriff shot the judge in his chambers chair.
Sheriff got a secret he won't keep. Judge shot dead in his disbelief. A lot of people have some stories to tell. Dark pass away, get the sound of a shotgun shell.
All the secrets spill on down. Voices loud in this old town. From the courthouse to the ground. Rumors fly and they can't be bound.
Neighbors hide behind their blinds. Whisper tales of troubled minds. Skeletons covering the mountainside. A treacherous reality in the pines.
Winter reveals the hidden lies. Moonlight couldn't mask their cries. Shadows caught in sunlit skies. There's no cover, no disguise. All the secrets spill on down. Voices loud in this old town. From the courthouse to the ground. Rumors fly and they can't be
Winter reveals the hidden lie. Moonlight could mask their cries. Shadows caught in sunlit skies. There's no cover, no disguise.
all the secrets spill on down. Voices loud in this old town. From the courthouse to the ground. Rumors fly and they can't be bound.
Hello everybody. Welcome to the channel. My name is Elizabeth and I am your friendly hillbilly host, and this is Hillbilly Crime. If you've not been here before, we are so glad that you are here now. Welcome to our hillbilly house. All right, well, Sweet Tater is not going to be with us tonight because she is out living it up at one of her music festivals that's going on this week. So she's having a great time. She drove there today, and it takes a few hours to get there. And she said she's got her bed made, and she's all ready to take a bunch of music classes this week. She does it every summer. This makes like 30 years in a row, 30 summers, around about, give or take a year or two, that she's went to this specific one. And so, you know, she's having a good time. So y'all pray for her. Sometimes the last several years, you know, things aren't the way that they used to be. Okay. Last several years, people have just changed, and like, it's not the same people that were there at the beginning, like when she first started going. So it's a whole new group, and most of them are probably younger, and they make fun of her sometimes, and they say things to her that's not nice. And you know, so she's been struggling the last few years. But anyway, so let's move on to our topic tonight. The Kentucky top cop indicted, and we've got a judge that's went to prison. But Tonight, we've got a brand new indictment to talk about. A Kentucky state trooper charged on July 5th. And we're going to get into what that means, especially in the bigger picture. But first, let me tell y'all something that keeps getting swept under the rug in these so-called accountability cases. When law enforcement officers abuse their power, it's not just the person pulling the rigor or, committing the use of force or swinging the baton that's responsible. It's the ones in charge of them too. The supervisors, the heads of these departments, the folks who were supposed to train them, discipline them, and remove them if they couldn't follow the law that they swore to uphold. Thank you, guys. We've got all kinds of people in here already. Good evening. Good evening. Adventures of Pete and Moore. It's been a while. Good to see you, darling. We had a lot of family issues, but we made it through, and praise Jesus. Amen. Let me fix my light there. My old doggy was laying on it, and it was getting ready to start falling. John Hester, thank you. Happy Sunday, everyone. Hardly hear you. Okay, I'm going to have to turn my fan off. Hang on. All right. I don't have an air conditioner in this room, y'all. It gets awful hot in here. So let's see. Is that good? Can y'all hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I am crazy. I found you through Fish a couple months back and love watching you. Well, thank you. We love Fish. Love Fish. Can't hear anything on my end. Can you all hear better now that I turned my fan off? Let's see. I've been looking for those rugs, and I'm starting to think they're gorilla gluing them down so you can't look under them. I love it, girl. I love it. So glad that you're back. So glad to have you back, lady. Oh no, Officer of the Year gets indicted by the feds, but not Kentucky Attorney General. So the feds indicted this guy, but not the AG. See, that's what we're going to be talking about. And we're also going to be talking about this guy's boss. Like this guy's boss, what the feds indicted this guy on, his boss signed off on at the time of the use of force. We're going to watch all of this stuff tonight, guys. We're going to have a really, really good show. All right. When law enforcement officers abuse their power, it's not just, oh, I already read that part. Sorry. Okay. So that's exactly why Sheriff Mickey Stines should have been named in his individual. Now, some of y'all are going to fuss at me over this, but I'm talking about the procedure. Now, just forget about who it is, okay? Forget about that you love Mickey, okay? We're talking about the lawsuit, and we're just talking about the way the policy and the way that the procedure is, And I'm going to talk about what I think, and I'm no lawyer, so, we're Monday morning quarterback and we're just giving our opinions here. But I'm going to talk about what I think messed up this case. We haven't seen a conclusion to it yet, but this is what I fear. This is what I think we're headed towards. I'm afraid that we are. But this is exactly why I think that Mickey Stines should have been named in his individual capacity in that civil lawsuit filed by attorney Ned Pillersdorf and them over the abuse involving Ben Fields, and I'm going to tell you why. He was not named in his individual capacity. He was only named in the official capacity. Well, now Mickey has been replaced in that lawsuit. He's no longer in that civil lawsuit. They replaced him. Now they've swapped him out for the new sheriff, Billy Jones. Now, Billy Jones was the school resource officer up at LCC at our high school, Whitesburg High School. And the way that I understood him, whenever he was hired, he had like 20 years experience out of Nicholasville, which is a much more populated area and more city than we are. But I don't even know if he's from this area, like originally. I don't know. But so we had 20 years experience out of Nicholasville, and I think he's a vet. I think he was, they said that he was a vet, I'm pretty sure. But then he moved back here, and the way that they hire at the high school, even though he worked for the sheriff's department under Mickey, whenever the school hires their school resource officers, it's the school that hires them. So then the school tells the sheriff or Mickey in that case, this is who we want to hire. And then Mickey does the hiring of who the school chooses to be their resource officer. So that's who our new sheriff is now. He wasn't whenever Mickey was sheriff. I don't think Billy Jones was driving a cruiser out driving around working as a deputy, like a road deputy. I don't think. But if I'm wrong, somebody let me know, because you always do. And I appreciate that very, very much. Cherry and Max gifted 10 Hillbilly Crime memberships. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Just to point that out too, we have a lot of elderly hillbillies with this channel. We have a whole lot of them in their 80s, 70s, 80s, some even in their 90s. And so a lot of them are on fixed incomes. So gifting memberships is the best way to, let them feel like they're part, which, every single one of you all are part of our Hillbilly house and family. So thank you. But back to my notes here. But here's the thing, y'all. You can't hold a new sheriff accountable for the last one's failures unless you prove, thank you, Crystal, unless you prove that he was part of the same pattern. And I think what I just laid out there shows this guy really wasn't part of the same pattern. In all of the discovery that came back on Ben Fields' case, I never saw Billy Jones's name in anything. At least I don't remember seeing him in any of the the locker room banter, the childish group chats that some of the younger deputies were included in with Mickey. I don't remember Billy Jones ever taking part in any of that immature behavior. Now, I don't know him personally. I've met him recently. He came to my house. He had to serve me with some papers. And, one of the things that we're supposed to use is our discernment, right? Like we talk about these, beware of false prophets, like the preacher man and all of them that are trying to sell salvation while fattening their big pockets and bank accounts. You better believe it. Well, you can kind of get a sense for somebody's personality and just their spirit, just being around them. It's called having a first impression and listening to your gut. And my first impression of our new sheriff, Billy Jones, was he's a really nice guy. Like he seemed like a really nice guy. He wasn't overly talkative. He had no idea who I was. He wasn't overly talkative, but I don't know, you could just tell he was a good dude, or at least that was my first impression anyway. Now, let's see, what was I was saying about somebody else. Who was I talking about? The preacher man. The preacher man he just gives me the creeps. Sorry, I've known him since we were kids anyway. I never ran around with him. I never hung out with him. But I just never desired to be in his company myself. And so we just it's really important that we use our discernment and try and, figure out somebody's personality. I was going somewhere with that. I was going to talk about somebody other than the sheriff. It'll come to me here in a minute. Let me get back to here. And if you don't name someone like Mickey personally, then you've just handed him a legal shield. And the case could crumble because of it. What I'm afraid of is that this civil case is going to get dismissed. And those women ain't going to get a dang thing. Because here's my thing. I think that they didn't name the judge in his official capacity. Now, I don't think the judge should have been named in his individual, because I don't think that there's been any kind of proof that's come forward that would justify naming him as in his individual capacity. But I think that he did deserve to be named in his official capacity, because it was his chambers that these abuses were taking place in. If not for any other reason, just that one. The jail. I think the jail should have been named. And I think the jail should have been named because a majority of the house arrest fees were being paid at the jail. And it was Ben's wife who was working at the jail, who was signing the receipts for the house arrest. And she was doing that at the jail. Like, that was their designated house arrest payment place. You do it in court, I guess, if they had drug court or court or whatever. But if somebody had to pay their weekly house arrest ankle monitor fee, they had to go down to the jail and pay Ben's wife. who worked at the jail, because Ben didn't work at the jail anymore, remember? Ben worked in the courthouse, in the courtroom. He wasn't in the jail. So I think the jail should have also been named in their official, I guess maybe the jailer himself, I guess, would have been there. And I think that Angie would, which I'm no lawyer, so I don't know if Angie would have been named or not, but the fact that she was taking the payments, that makes me think that she should have been named. But that's my opinion on all that. And I think, remember, all of these details and these plea bargains and stuff were going down. Judge Mullins was still alive. Kevin Mullins was still running the district courtroom. He was still running the courthouse. Don't think he wasn't. He was still golden boy status. He still had all power. He still had all protection. And he still had the ability to protect those around him, or at least to do so to the best of his ability. So I think that was one of those backroom deals that involved even those defendants or those victims, Sabrina's and them's lawyers, because they're the ones that did it. They're the ones that were responsible for naming everybody in that lawsuit. And when they asked Ned in one of his interviews, his answer was that as an attorney, when you file a lawsuit and you name someone in a lawsuit, you have to do so in good faith, is what he said. What does that mean? He said that there was no proof that the judge was involved in the SMEC stuff. But yet, he also said, talking out the other side of his mouth, that they turned the courthouse into a brothel. And he knew, I mean, it's common sense. Even though we don't have the proof, these women in this lawsuit were not the first ones. Like, this all came about from the rumors that they had initially heard of other women. Well, the rumors couldn't have gotten started if there weren't any other women to begin with, right? Plus, I know that there was a ton of other women that was going through all of this stuff, because a lot of them I've talked to, even though they're not involved in this lawsuit, right? And we have a pattern and a history of this behavior in our local courthouse that goes back decades, administrations, you name it. There have been lots of scandals. Okay. Now, same goes for Judge Kevin Mullins. Same goes for the jail. These lawsuits always talk about the system, but they keep failing to name the actual people running this system by name in their individual capacity. And when that happens, victims, especially women who were abused behind bars, walk away with nothing but trauma and silence. Now, I'm telling you right now, if this case gets dismissed because the right people weren't named in the right way, then that courthouse failed again. And our system failed again. And that ain't justice. That's just protection wrapped in procedure. So tonight, we're breaking it down, how it all connects to, and not so much like the Mickey case, but talking about how supervisors and the food chain, how it goes up the food chain, right? we're going to talk about this trooper's indictment, what went wrong in the Ronnie Goldie trial. Now, Ronnie Goldie is a prosecutor, a former prosecutor who got in some big trouble, and we're going to look at that. We're also going to look at his trial. I have his trial transcripts. And how these so-called systems of oversight are really just shells when nobody's willing to name the ones holding the reins. All right, so let me go up here, and we are going to now the civil rights attorney, he really did hey Bella, come here. He really did a great job the other night on a video on this very case. And we're going to look at just a little bit of the body cam footage, and then we're going to, let me read it. Let me stop sharing that. And we'll go to, let me go to where I'm supposed to be here. Okay. I love watching the civil rights attorney. If you guys are, some of you I'm sure are very aware of who he is. But the civilrightslawyer.com. So here is his website. So if any of y'all want to go watch him, he's awesome. I'm just going to read some of this. It says Kentucky State Trooper, Police Trooper James Cameron Wright has finally been indicted by the feds for multiple civil rights violations, which were not only known by his chain of command, but some of which were personally reviewed and approved by the literal head of the Kentucky State Police. This includes beatings, perjury, and more. Kentucky civil rights attorney Chris Weist, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but gives us the scandalous details, including exclusive new body cam footage for one of the incidents. And then he's got the lawsuits here, which I downloaded. And I put the links to all of this stuff in the description of the video. So if anybody wants to go and watch anything, I hooked you up in the description. So now let's watch a little bit of this body cam.
This is wrong. You're going to get fired.
On March.
Okay. I don't want to get too much of his commentary, but
failure to signal. His dash cam is operating and it shows him stopping the vehicle and then getting out and approaching the driver. Upon contact, he begins to suspect that the driver, John Millette, may be intoxicated.
Boss Bub?
I believe so. I was looking for...
You seem like you're pretty lost.
Yeah, I was looking for somebody who was selling something on Facebook. And
Oh, where are you trying to get to?
it's...
You don't know where you're going without looking at your phone?
No, I was getting the address.
Oh, where are you trying to get to, like, in general? Like Muldrow, trying to get
It
to
was it was supposed to be Maudraw, I think.
Oh, you're going the wrong way then, bub.
Oh, okay.
You care to put the cigarette out while we're talking? Because it gets sucked out the window at me.
now I'm also gonna tell you this guy had he didn't have no tags. He didn't have no insurance. Like, he was really illegal. You know, he was going to probably go to jail anyway. I think he had been drinking a little bit, but his own attorney stipulates to all of that. Okay, it's the way that this cop
And I don't want to sit here and deal with the smoke while. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Wright then asks Mr. Millett for his driver's license and insurance.
You got your driver's license insurance card on you?
I don't have insurance at the time. I just got my taxes, and I'm looking for car insurance rates.
Sure. Okay.
I'm serious. I really.
No, I believe you.
And
And Millett responds that he does not have insurance. And then he basically begs Trooper Wright, saying that he needs a break.
He does. I don't want to get too much of his commentary in there. I don't want to get in
I'll
trouble.
give you a break on it.
I'm doing everything wrong. I don't have tags. I don't have insurance.
Okay. I mean, I can deal with that. I'll be honest. I care about that stuff, but I couldn't care less about that compared to other things. See what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
Nothing illegal inside the vehicle.
No.
Okay. So where are you trying to get to?
Muldrow.
Okay. I got you.
Then Wright
Okay. We'll get past his commentary. Oh,
asks Mr. Millett to turn his car off, to which he complies.
You don't care to turn the car off for a second, okay?
Wright asks Mr. Millett to step out of the vehicle so that he could talk to him. Wright then himself
Yeah.
Hey, you reach for anything.
Mr. Millett is seen on the body
okay, you can see his hands are up, and he's got like a lighter in one hand and a phone in the other.
and grabbed Mr. Millett to control him. And with Mr. Millett having his cell phone in his left hand, Mr. Millett's hands are still raised, demonstrating compliance.
Look, I was just grabbing my lighter.
Even though Mr. Millett did not resist
Okay.
Wright in any way, Wright bear hugs Mr. Millett and violently throws him to the ground.
Hey, I'm not even doing nothing
Put your hands
wrong.
behind your back. Put your hands behind your back.
I'm not even
Roll
doing
on your
nothing
belly.
wrong.
Get on your belly.
He's got his hands back behind his back, laying on the ground while this cop is screaming at him to get on his belly, get on his belly. And he really didn't have a good way to go from there. Let's see. I think that's the end of that part. Now there's a lawsuit that we're going to read, and here's this other lawyer.
As he himself was the lawyer who was involved 5 years earlier in trying to hold that trooper accountable back then.
March 6th, 2020, there is a chase of a gentleman by the name of Justin Halcomb. Stops his video, steps out, puts his hands on his truck, and he gets piled on by KSP troopers, including Wright. You know, shoves his head to the ground, repeatedly and gratuitously strikes him as he's piled on by multiple officers. You've got hospital photos afterwards where Halcomb is jacked up and bloody as a consequence of this. So that's March 6th, 2020. April 2, 2020, Wright is involved in the apprehension of a guy by the name of Thomas Davis. Davis is stopped. Wright opens the driver's door, throws him to the ground, even though he wasn't actively resisting, and then he is repeatedly and gratuitously struck. What is interesting about both the Halcomb and Thomas Davis incidents is they generate what is known as an RR report in KSP parlance, which is a response to resistance report. KSP policy is basically to criminally charge every single person that they beat or abuse with obstruction of justice or resisting arrest, specifically resisting arrest, regardless of whether or not, this is in their policy, regardless of whether or not they in fact resist.
Did you hear that? So this is in their policy. It has become such a, like we have all heard in the last several years, whenever a police officer feels threatened for their life, then they usually will be found pew pew as justified. if they so. A lot of times you'll hear cops say, I feared for my life. I feared for my life. You know, and well, so that has become built in, written in to their policies on how and their procedures on how they deal with these situations, which is exactly what this lawyer is talking about. So now it is written into the the law enforcement's policy that whether someone resisted or not, it doesn't matter. They are getting charged with it. If there's a use of force, they are charged with it, regardless of whether they in fact resisted.
If you use force on somebody, you're going to charge them. It's a cover. The policy
Cover up.
The cover up is embedded in KSP policy. It's insane. The lieutenant colonel that's in charge of operations is now the KSP commissioner.
Look at
And
this.
in that capacity, he is reviewing the internal affairs recommendations on these response to resistance reports.
Who is policing the police? It's the police. Well, what happens? Who's policing those who are supposed to be policing the police? Well, most of us think it's supposed to be the feds. The feds are the ones who brought this indictment. Why didn't the attorney general bring this indictment? This is our top cop. That's why. This is our trooper of the year. That's why.
And he signs off on and approves that there was no unlawful use of force on both Davis and Halcomb, both of which a federal grand jury has found probable cause to arrest and charge these troopers with criminal use of force. So the cover up goes all the way up to the current KSP commissioner,
Philip Burnett.
Philip Burnett. His signature is on these responses.
Let's read this. It says, Office of the Commissioner. Commissioner Philip P.J. Burnett Jr. is a 28-year veteran of the KSP and has served in numerous assignments, including post-level uniformed and investigative operations, collision reconstructionist, field training officer. So if he is a field training officer, right, then he should know when he sees a body cam video, when he sees one of his officers behaving improperly, you know, misconduct, use of force, excessive use of force, violating people's civil rights. These are some serious accusations. And you know as well as I do that the FBI would not be bringing this if it wasn't overkill. All right. Firearms instructor, post commander, operations East Troop Major, and administration division lieutenant colonel, and executive director of the Office of Operations as Unit 1 on November 4th, 2020. He was promoted to colonel and acting commissioner of the agency. Commissioner Burnett is a native of Bell County, which is Pineville. That's where my oldest son was born, Bell County. He received his Bachelor of Science degree from Union College, where he also holds a teaching certification in secondary education. Since serving with KSP, he has received multiple awards, including Post Trooper of the Year. Well, you know, that stuff just does not impress me. These things do not impress me because they pat each other on the back left and right. They want to give everybody the biggest award that they possibly can give them for anything. I don't know. It just seems like they brag on all this training, but yet then when you see them in the field and you see the fruits of their labor, like what we're supposed to be doing, all of this thou shalt not judge stuff is a bunch of BS. We're exactly supposed to judge. We are supposed to judge ourselves, and we're also supposed to judge each other. The Bible tells us to know that we will know the false prophets by the fruits that they bear. Are they bearing good fruit, or are they bearing thorns? Because a thorn bush cannot produce good fruit, and a nice healthy fruit tree is not going to produce thorns, right? So we are to use that discernment again and be able to discern and judge for ourselves what kind of fruit somebody is producing. And then we know. That's how we know. Well, when somebody's got all of these awards and they've got all of these certifications and they've got all of these trainings, but yet they're signing off on this stuff, well, how well are they trained in the first place? And were they paying attention? What good is having all of those letters and stuff behind your name if you're not going to use it appropriately? Anyway, let's see, administration, division, lieutenant colonel, executive director of the office of operations. Okay. I already read all that. Since serving with KSP, he has received multiple awards: Trooper of the Year, the Citation for Bravery, the Commissioner's Award, and back-to-back Governor's Awards for impaired driving enforcement. He currently resides in Pineville with his wife and 2 sons. Well, ain't that nice? I've got more education than he does. Higher education.
To resistance reports.
The guy who is now the head of the Kentucky State Police signed off on those uses of force as being justified or being lawful. And now, 5 years later, a federal grand jury has indicted Wright for both of those uses of force.
Correct.
Got it.
All right. Timeline, April 9th, 7 days after the Davis incident, we've got the Alex Hornback incident, which you've reported on, I reported on, we've got the video. They didn't know we had basement camera. They threatened mom and dad with arrest over the dad's cell phone video because they didn't want any of it captured. They both say they use no force, even though we've got video of it, both Sartorsky and Wright under oath.
The Hornback arrest.
Okay, so we've got those videos. We're going to look at them. We are going to look at, so this one video, so the lawyer got this video, okay? The one that we were just listening to, I think, or one of the lawyers got the video from the parents. He got the video from the parents, from home. Here it is. They didn't know. It's only a couple minutes long. They didn't know. Whenever they went to court and testified on the stand, they didn't know. The cops didn't know that this video even existed. It was in the house. The parents had it. Cops never knew it existed. And look here. Look, he reached up with that, but that flashlight like he was going to hit that boy's mom. Look, he's pushing her there. Now, the dad, I think, went to go get his phone because we see him come back with his phone and he starts recording with his phone. And that's when this police officer, apparently, I don't know if they did it after the fact, but they hounded the parents to get that video, the cell phone video. I'll read what it says underneath there here in just a second. And then we've got the video of this cop on the stand lying about it. He lies on the stand that they never committed any use of force. Okay, that's all of that one. Let's see what it says underneath it. Okay. This was posted July 9th, 2021. Kentucky State Police troopers arrested Alex Hornback on April 9th, 2020. Thomas Kazartorski testified under oath he didn't use any force in the arrest. This video shows him strike Hornback numerous times with the flashlight. Okay. And so then we're going to pull up the video of him on the stand. It's just a couple minutes long, too. It's just crazy how people think that, you know, it's just it is just you know, they're entitled to it. They are just entitled to do. And here we go.
Once you had him on the ground, did you strike or hit him with a closed fist at all?
No, sir.
Okay. Or any part of your body?
No, sir.
Okay. And the reason that you didn't do that is that there was no more force that was required at that point in time to have affected the arrest, right?
He did not need to be struck with my hands or any impact weapon.
Once you have
So that lawyer knew what was going on. He set him up. You know, you guys know that we've heard 1,000 times. A lawyer will never ask a question that they don't already know the answer to. They just will not do it. They already know the answers. All right. Now, that's a different one. I don't want to get that one in here. Okay. Now, here is a news. I want you guys to see this one. This is a news story that was done. It's just unbelievable to me. Okay.
At noon, a KSP trooper at the center of a viral video is now facing a civil rights lawsuit in federal court.
Oh.
In that video, the trooper ends up being pinned to the ground by...
That's a different one. Listen, this is a different KSP officer on this one, but we'll watch it.
A construction crew. The I-Team's Derek Rose broke this story on social media moments ago. He joins us now with an update. Derek?
Well, Juliana, for several weeks, the I-Team's been trying to flesh out this development. There was word the members of that road crew initially wanted to pursue criminal charges against Anthony Harrison, who's the trooper, but that has since changed, and we now have that lawsuit that was filed in federal court on Friday. The lawsuit names Trooper Harrison, who was captured on cell phone video, yelling at members of that road crew in late September. According to the lawsuit, Harrison sped through a work zone near the Hardin-Meade County line and nearly hit one of the plaintiffs in the case, Cindy West. West, along with Damon Johnson and Joey Gaddis, claim Harrison slammed on his brakes, got out of his car, waving his badge, and was starting to shout at the crew members. And the lawsuit claims when Harrison realized he was being recorded, he escalated the confrontation and punched at least 2 of those crew members.
Don't yell at me. I will yell at you. Do not. I will yell. Oh, what? Oh, what?
That crew, as we mentioned, eventually pinned Harrison to the ground, but the lawsuit also suggests when fellow troopers responded to the scene, Harrison was given special treatment. The lawsuit says he was talking and laughing with other troopers while members of the road crew were lined up, photographed, and, quote, interrogated individually about their possible criminal actions. Now, the lawsuit claims the entire encounter and their treatment was a violation of the crew members' 4th, 5th, and 14th Amendment rights, which include false arrest and due process. And there are also claims of assault and battery by Trooper Harrison. The lawsuit also names Harrison's superior officer, Sergeant Jeremy Mabe, claiming he failed to adequately train and supervise Harrison. We've reached out to KSP for comment on the lawsuit, and Juliana's spokesperson was consulting with the department's legal team before issuing a comment. In the past, though, we have seen them generally issue statements declining to comment on pending litigation. For the 11.
Okay. That's a different case. That is not in this one that was just indicted by the feds, but that shows you and this ain't just in Kentucky, you guys. This is everywhere. It's everywhere, and it's become a huge problem. It's become a huge problem. All right, so let's get over here. We're going to watch this.
Okay. Or any part of your body?
No, sir.
Okay. And the reason that you didn't do that is that there was no more force that was required at that point in time to have affected the arrest, right?
He did not need to be struck with my hands or any impact weapon.
Maybe the craziest part of the story is what happened afterwards. In that lawsuit, the federal judge calls out these 2 cops for lying. So what do Kentucky prosecutors and the Kentucky State Police do as a result? Both cops, Wright and Zartorsky, lied about unnecessarily beating and striking Mr. Hornback. But only Zartorsky was forced to resign and indicted on state perjury charge.
Now, here is our sacrificial lamb. So you had 2 of these officers. Zartorsky was the sacrifice. He was the one who lost his job. He lost everything while the other one went on to be Trooper of the Year. Oh, yeah, this all happened before he became Trooper of the Year, I'm pretty sure. Ben Fields, sacrificial lamb. Whenever there was this lawsuit pending, whenever there was a criminal investigation begging to be started, well, what's it look like it happened? It looks to me like they've all had a big meeting and they've said, give us Ben. Give us Ben with a signed guilty plea bargain, and we won't investigate any further. That'll be enough. That will satisfy everybody. That will cover our asses. When the people start to rise up, when the people start to cry out, we can say, we can point to Ben and say, we got a conviction. We got a guilty plea. Well, if you've got an active organized crime ring that's going on. Oh yeah, let's not forget. Well, I don't want to mix cases too much topics, so I'll stick this to a different one.
And ultimately convicted never to work as a police officer again. Given the fact that Wright did the exact same thing as Zartorsky,
he got his certification taken and can never even be a police officer again. Who's Wright related to? George Harmon said, so do your homework. Who's Wright related to? I don't know, but I know it's a factor. Thank you, Mr. Harmon. That's exactly right.
why didn't any of that happen to him? He was not fired. He was not forced to resign. He was not charged. In fact, he was given an award for Trooper of the Year. You could not make this up if you wanted to.
Zartorsky ends up being, ending his career with the KSP. He's put on probation for state perjury charge. He's never allowed to hold a law enforcement career. He was in the military as an officer at the time in the National Guard, I believe. Part of his probation term is that had to end. So he's taken out of positions of trust and confidence as a consequence of the perjury conviction. Wright, meanwhile, is allowed to continue and, in fact, is nominated by Burnett and others as Trooper of the Year with knowledge of all of this going on. Okay? So he's the pedestal guy that they're holding up, the perjurer. By the way, Wright was indicted for perjury by the feds recently for his same testimony in the Hornback case. So we've got.
Did you hear that? So the feds indicted him on perjury in that Hornback case, the same case that the other fella got, in trouble over, but he got Trooper of the Year. So what I think is a big failure here, they're doing the same exact thing here. Even though they indicted the right guy, his last name is Wright. So even though they indicted the cop, where is the accountability for his superiors? The ones who looked the other way and rubber stamped his Trooper of the Year award. Where's their accountability for their failure? Because it's not just a failure. I mean, in my mind, it's the exact same thing a doctor, if they didn't diagnose something right. It's malpractice. It's legal malpractice. And when you have a system, our legal systems are set up in counties, right? Every county in Kentucky has a courthouse. One courthouse. They don't have any more, just one. And you have a district court and you have a circuit court, okay, for every single county. So that means you have two judges. You have a district judge and you have a circuit judge. You have a county attorney, prosecutor, and you have a Commonwealth attorney, prosecutor. So you have two prosecutors. You have two judges, one for misdemeanor, one for felony court. So you have one misdemeanor court, you have one felony court. And if you have a judge, a prosecutor, and defense attorneys, and it doesn't have to be all of them, it could just be one of them. But if you have these three people in our legal system who are doing things that they really shouldn't be doing, when they're doing things when nobody's looking, and I mean breaking any law, because from what I see, I've been doing a lot of research. I've been doing a lot of digging in our local stuff. Property, deeds, who's buying property from who? Who's selling property to who? Who owns property in Letcher County? Looking at marriage licenses. looking at death certificates, looking at all kinds of documents. And it's amazing the kinds of connections that you find in a little small county. It's amazing the kind of connections that you make. And it opens your eyes to how they're not just coworkers. And they're not just coworkers as like a judge and a prosecutor and a defense attorney or a clerk or you name it. You can just go on and on and on of officials, right? For a county, government elected officials. If they're doing things where they're benefiting financially in any way, whether it's through some kind of lawsuit, civil lawsuit, whether it's through property, whether it's through, it doesn't matter what it is, if they are making decisions in the courtroom for different cases with the motivation for them to make money, to financially gain, I don't think that they're allowed to do that. I don't think they're allowed to do anything like that, right? So you just imagine in a county, these people work together every single day, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 or later. And so most of the time when these cases come up, they're just cases. They're just another number. They don't get emotionally connected to these cases. They don't get personally invested in these cases. They just don't. And one thing that we see repeatedly is witnesses then that also work in those courthouses like clerks or shoot, man, it could just be a custodian. But anybody that works in those courthouses or works in and that are in the know for any of these things, they are terrified, absolutely terrified for their lives, that if they tell anything, they don't know what will happen.
All this going on, and it's being covered up, and in fact,
and that gives a whole other credibility to the fear that we saw Mickey have. I mean, it really does bring a whole level of credibility to Mickey's fear of the Kentucky State Police. In my mind.
They're holding right up as the Trooper of the Year in or around that time with knowledge of all of this. By the way, one of the things that we've also come to learn, and this is in the Millett lawsuit, is the person that was investigating these post-4 use of forces, there's a sergeant. The sergeant, by the way, was himself the subject of multiple lawsuits.
What is his name?
Yeah, it's, let me find it. Jeremy Mabe.
M-A-B-E.
M-A-B-E. Yeah, so Mabe's the immediate supervisor who's assigned to investigate most of these uses of force. And generally he is writing in repeated use of force investigations. The subject took a belated aggressive stance, and that justifies all these people getting jacked up. And
see, that's what he said. That's what was written in the statement from whoever it was, that the subject took an aggressive stance. And that just justifies, because they say that, that justifies whatever use of force that the police officer wants to duel out.
He was involved in the whitewash. You know, so that's also going on. And there's a pattern of it, including the investigation of Halcomb and Davis, both of which are the subject of federal indictments at this point. Halcomb had whitewashed, blatant aggressive stance. So that's also going on. March 12th, 2024, we've got the incident with my client, Mr. Millett. There is the traffic stop. I don't think there's any argument by us about the legality of the stop, nor is there argument by us about the legality of the arrest. It's somewhat apparent that, you know, he had been drinking a little. And I don't think we take issue with that aspect.
And here's where his lawyer, see, this is that boy's lawyer. And this is where he says, you know, he was drinking a little. He had, you know, didn't have his registration or insurance, stuff like that. He would have went to jail anyway. That's not contested. Like, they're not saying this boy was a saint and that he shouldn't have got pulled over. But we didn't see the end of that video. You see him bear hug him and kind of dump him on the ground, body slam him on the ground. He's already handcuffed. That boy, or no, he wasn't handcuffed at that time. But then he gets him up and he does it again. He throws him down after he's handcuffed this time. And when he throws him down, we're going to watch it. But when he throws him down and he's handcuffed, he can't brace his fall. You know, he can't put his hands down and brace his fall. And when he falls down, he goes right down onto his shoulder. And I don't know if it broke his shoulder. He says that it broke his shoulder, but I doubt it did. He was crying. You hear him crying.
Aspect of it, but we do take issue with the use of force. And so Wright's got body worn camera. There's also some dash camera footage. My whistleblower, by the way, is prepared to testify that when KSP first got body cameras, one of the first people it was issued to was Cameron Wright, because they knew he was out there tuning up citizens.
Did you hear that? When they first got body cam videos, body cams, that one of the very first officers that they gave one to was this officer, because they knew, this lawyer said it, they knew he was out there tuning up people, meaning he was putting hands on them, and they didn't have it on video. They thought maybe by putting a body cam on him, it would tone him down and he wouldn't do it as much.
You know, illegally, and they wanted, you know, to kind of tone him down a little bit by getting him a body camera. It didn't stop him, obviously.
So turning back to the body cam footage showing what happened to Mr. Millett at the hands of James Cameron Wright, Wright had thrown Mr. Millett to the ground. Once on the ground, Wright demanded that Mr. Millett place his hands behind his back. So Mr. Millett did that. He immediately placed his hands behind his back.
I'm not even doing nothing
Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back.
But then Wright yells for Mr. Millett to get on his belly. Mr. Millett's hands are still behind his back at that point.
I'm not even doing nothing wrong.
Get on your belly.
Wright then yells again for Mr. Millett to get on his belly, and less than a second later,
get on your belly.
Wright then deploys his taser. Wright's dash cam footage reveals not just one, but two separate deployments of his taser, where you hear popping noise for extended periods of time. Wright continues his taser deployment for approximately 10 seconds.
Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back.
I'm good.
Do not move. Do you understand me?
After Wright ceases taser deployment, Mr. Millett flips to his stomach with his hands behind his back.
What is wrong with you?
When a state trooper gives you a lawful order, you do it. Do not move. You understand? You are under arrest.
For what?
For obstructing, and now
I may have had them two switched around in my head. That might have been the other guy that he threw down. But you see, he still did bad stuff to this guy.
resisting arrest.
No, I didn't. Your camera will show.
Yeah, do
I
not
swear
move.
to God, it'll
Yeah.
show.
I can smell weed and I can smell alcohol.
There ain't no fucking weed in the car.
Yeah, I can smell alcohol on you.
No, you ain't got no right to search my vehicle. I didn't do nothing wrong. I didn't do nothing wrong.
Mr. Millett is then handcuffed and pulled to his feet. Immediately after that, Trooper Wright again gratuitously throws Mr. Millett back to the ground, injuring him. Mr. Millett complains and screams out due to severe shoulder pain.
Do not dare try to go back towards that car.
See, I thought I had it wrong. I thought I was mistaken, because who would ever think that this cop would throw him down again after he's handcuffed, after he's tased him several times? I mean, why would he do that? Why did he need to do that? He didn't. He did not need to do that to this boy.
Why did you do this to me? My fucking shoulder's broke, dude.
It ain't broke.
You just fucking slammed me.
Stand up.
You just slammed me and I didn't even touch you.
You tried to pull me back towards your car.
No, I didn't.
Quit pulling against me. You're going back down.
I have rights. This is wrong. You're going to get fired.
No, you're drunk. I can smell weed. And I'm about to search that car, so you better tell me what's in the car right now.
Basically, he just escalates a routine traffic stop into violence, just like he's done in all these other incidents.
Oh yeah, I think we're now like case 6 or 7 of this, that we know of, and frankly, there's a lot more to it. My understanding is he has generated over 100 use of force incidents, but we're still investigating that.
What happened?
They're still investigating it, but they have uncovered so far over 100 use of force incidents. It just unbelievable. I watched a body cam today. We're gonna watch it another on another show. It was a guy in Georgia who worked at the jail. He was just a jail employee, got pulled over by a cop, and he thought he had that special power, and he was like, just follow me, and he pulled off, and she kept telling him, no, I'm not following you, you're not free to leave. And she followed. When he pulled off, she radioed it, and she followed him home. All right, yeah, about 10 more cops showed up. And that boy, well, he wasn't no boy. He was 40 years old. Well, I made her do what I wanted her to do. But y'all didn't know that. Y'all didn't know that that's what I was doing. But she did what I wanted her to do. She followed me. Yeah, and the ego that this man had was unbelievable. And when the cops called him on his behavior and they were going to arrest him, he starts screaming for help from all of the people that were neighbors and stuff in an apartment complex. He ended up losing his job, thank God. And the judge also ordered him to have mental health evaluation because he behaved in just such an awful manner. But you could tell that this was this guy's personality. He wasn't just having a bad day. No. This was this guy's personality. Can you imagine how many people in that jail that he had tormented, said that he was a 10-year veteran of that jail? How many inmates have been tortured? He told that cop that he played with inmates for a living. And he was trying to play all these mind games. Can you imagine how many people have been that man's victim over the last 10 years? And that's just one. That's just one person. It's kind of like the same philosophy in my mind. Remember, I'm crazy, but same philosophy in my mind as like animals. Okay, like this bunch wouldn't take these dogs right over here the other day. Well, Do you know how many litters they've taken pups from these dogs? So you're willing to leave these animals here to be starved, beaten, and to continue to breed. You've taken 10 litters, let's just guess, and we'll say, if you take 10 litters of pups from this one dog, every litter of pups, they have 10 pups. That is 100 dogs that you then you're already screaming that there's no room. There's no room at the shelter. There's no room. So you leave this one dog that in time is going to take up 100 spots because of all the pups that they're continued to allow to have. Does that make sense? No, that doesn't make a bit of sense to me. But it's the same kind of philosophy in my brain.
With the criminal prosecution of Millett.
So he was charged with resisting and everything else. That gets knocked down. I think he pled to an open container charge and a reduced charge on the driving of influence charge.
At what point was the use of force questioned in the Millett incident?
Well, by KSP, because Millett goes to the hospital, right? Millett wasn't just tased. I think he was thrown twice.
Mm-hmm.
And as a consequence of all of this, he's taken to Baptist Health for treatment. Ultimately, he goes to the hospital. He's got a fracture of 7 of his ribs, a dislocation of his left shoulder. Obviously,
he did a dislocated shoulder and broken ribs from what that cop did to him, what we just watched him do.
When the taser strikes you twice, when he was tased twice, that those probes go into your skin. It's like a barb that goes into your skin. So all that occurs. That's his physical injuries. Because he is taken to the hospital, they have to do an RR report. And there's a discussion between him and the lieutenant at the scene. We think it's Lieutenant McKee, but I'm not 100% sure about that. So I've sued all the lieutenants, and they're talking about how Wright needs to respond to this, to not, to.
Did you hear that? He said, I didn't know which lieutenant, so I sued them all. Okay, this is it. I love these lawyers. I love both these guys. We need good lawyers. But like I was talking about, in a town where everybody works together, if you don't have any defense attorneys in that, like, look here in this rural area, like in Whitesburg, if you don't have any attorneys to choose from that are outside of that circle, what do you think is going to happen? Do you really think that they're not going to sell you out? Because I've seen it happen too many times. I've seen it happen too many times. The same thing, like I said, I feel like this Mickey civil lawsuit, remember, Judge Mullins was not dead yet. He was still very much alive and in power and in control. And I think that one of those backroom deals, backroom negotiate, which lawyers, that's what they're supposed to do anyway, is negotiate, okay? But when your own attorney is going against what is in your best interest because of their own interest, their own career interest, their own working relationship with that prosecutor or with that other attorney or with that judge or with the system, they could just fear some sort of social isolation in the system. Look at how, like me speaking up, everybody asks me if I'm afraid and if I'm afraid. Well, the only way that they get you is through social isolation. Well, it's not the only way, but it's one of the main ways, is through social isolation. Nobody will hire you. Nobody will rent a house to you. Nobody wants to talk to you out in public, right? Nobody wants to put a like on your post on social media because the wrong person might see that. They don't want to risk. It's like the Facebook friendship thing. If you're going to be friends with her, you're not going to be friends with me. And you better not have to go in front of them in the courtroom, because they will. You will face the consequences in some way, shape, or form. You know, it's opportunity. They may not come out and go out of their way to do anything to you, but if the opportunity presents itself that they have the opportunity to do something, then they will take that opportunity. They're sure not going to turn it down.
Not violate policy. Basically, they're talking about how it's on the camera at the hospital. There's this discussion of the lieutenant of like how to cover it up. That's pretty problematic. Although that's part and parcel with what's going on at post 4 KSP. So, like I said, there's a pattern of practice issue here. Millette's admitted to St. Mary's Hospital. We've got 7 days of hospital admission records with all this treatment. And so, you know, all that's going on as well.
He was hospitalized for 7 days as a result of this.
Yes.
Damn.
He's got broken ribs. Like, you know, I mean, he's significantly jacked up as a consequence of this.
Wow.
We're getting ready to sue, and I was aware for a while that the FBI was looking into Cameron Wright as early in Zertorsky as early as 2021. I might want to mention Sergeant Mabe. We talked about him. He was sued in 2017 for a use of force incident and threatening to illegally arrest road workers. He was sued again. This is the investigator, right? This is the guy that's holding people accountable.
Right. So this is where we get when the police are investigating the police, and those that are investigating the police are doing the same things. They're being sued for doing the same thing. Where do you turn, and where do you actually get a fair and impartial investigation? We saw that when Mickey found out about the civil suit against him and Ben Fields, he reached out to Kentucky State Police and asked them to come investigate Ben and the allegations that were being made by Sabrina and Jennifer Hill. The Kentucky State Police said no. They declined to investigate Ben Fields because they said they were too close to the office. They were too close to Mickey Stines and the Letcher County Sheriff's Office. Well, they should have reached out to another post of the state police and just had another post come in that was not close to them and do the investigation, but they didn't do that. Nobody investigated Ben until in a criminal investigation, until Ned Pillersdorf filed the civil suit. He had already filed the civil suit, and he took some of the information to the Attorney General's office and asked them to conduct an investigation. Now, he said he was very surprised. If I remember everything correctly, he said that he was very surprised because they usually will not help in those cases. But they said yes. Well, could that possibly be so they could control that plea deal? So the Attorney General's office could control that investigation and where it went? As long as they had Ben Fields, that's all they wanted. That's all they investigated. They did not go any further with anyone else. And that was the AG's office that did that. Now, mind you, the AG's office also has a SMEX trafficking task force. A task force that knows all about grooming, that knows all about the different ways that they benefit and financially gain from these rings. They would be able to identify by many different ways. They would be able to identify that. Didn't use it. Did not use the task force in any way, shape, or form.
Sued again for excessive force and false arrest in Turner v. Mabe in 2020 in federal court. So, like, I mean, who's policing the people that are supposed to police the police? Like, when they're getting sued themselves. So, you know, there's a problem here.
And then he did it again a few months after Millette to this Blevins guy.
Yep, the Blevins.
All right, Mr. Blevins, stay that phone real quick.
I ain't got to get out of here.
A typical traffic stop last June turned tense when a Kentucky trooper turned his taser on Dawson Blevins.
I was thinking he wasn't going to stop tasing me.
A lawsuit filed Monday claims trooper James became aggressive when Blevins didn't want to get out of the car. Eventually did, and that's when the situation escalated.
Oh, on video.
The video, Blevins is tackled and tased multiple times while expressing to Wright he can't comply with his orders.
Put your hands behind your back. Okay.
He was then maced.
Put your hands behind your back.
Yet another case of him taking just a routine traffic stop, and when somebody doesn't respond quickly enough, you know, throwing them on the ground violently and tasing them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the pattern and MO of this guy. If you look at the Second Amendment complaint that's been tendered, a lot of that information, particularly in paragraphs 77 through 98, discuss what the command staff knew of, how there was the systemic cover-up. That we're prepared to substantiate that by way of testimony. We got a KSP insider that's willing to point the finger all the way up the chain of command on this. And
so they have a whistleblower. They have a whistleblower from inside the KSP who is going to, or who's willing to testify. And like he said, point the finger all the way up.
You know, it's a problem. I don't know why they are undertaking cover up as opposed to, you know, trying to clean up the organization, appropriately training troopers on active versus passive resistance. Like, I mean, the rot is all the way to the top, and you know, it's unfortunate because, I mean, KSP for a long time always had this gold standard in Kentucky. I do think the accountability's got to run to the top, you know, and I'd love to get some systemic changes in how they train, how they handle resistance response. They went out, I don't know if you know this, this was in the complaint, true story, substantiated by open records requests. They went out and spent money on a new tracking system in place with other organizations called IA Pro. They spent more than $100,000 for IA Pro software. And it would allow tracking of like these E42 incidents that now they're covering up. They decided not to do that because they don't want tracking within KSP of these use of force incidents to be able to demonstrate pattern and practice. Like, this is not sort of a, hey, I'm at the top, I'm busy, this didn't catch my attention. This is, I am making deliberate decision making to cover up serious misconduct all the way to the top of the organization. Cameron Wright, he gets criminally charged by the United States Department of Justice. I mean, by the way, when they came in, like, it's not just the local U.S. attorneys that are part of this. If you look at the appearance, there are attorneys from Main Justice, the criminal division, the Civil Rights Division criminal section. I think there's 4 or 5 of them that have been assigned to this. Like this has gotten the attention of Washington, D.C. It's been that bad. They're indicting Cameron Wright. KSP leadership is signing off on the same incidents. Like, there's a disconnect.
There's a big disconnect, right? So if their leadership is signing off on this and they're committing the same kinds of misconduct, I think it's time to clean freaking house. And it's not just time to clean house for our KSP. It's time to clean house for Letcher County Courthouse. It's time to clean house for any courthouse that has these kinds of enabling. All they're doing is enabling. They're not stemming any kind of issue. They're not coming up with any kind of resolution or any kind of solution like they say they are. They try to. Like any solution that they seem to come up with, only it's like putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound, you know. Doesn't really work.
Is Wright still employed by the Kentucky State Police?
He is employed. They put him on paid leave, is my understanding, pending the criminal outcome. So even the indictment was not sufficient to end his employment. He is,
and he's continuing to get paid while he sits at home and does nothing and prepares for his trial. Now he'll get paid.
being paid. This is my understanding. He's being paid by the taxpayers to sit at home right now while his criminal charges are pending. Wright was indicted, by the way,
Shameful.
Just so I can be clear, for the March 5th incident on Mr. Halcomb, use of force, excessive use of force. For the March 12th incident on my client, Mr. Millett. So that's number 2. That's the second use of force. And for the perjury incident in the Hornback case, those were the 3 charges that have been in federal charges against Cameron Wright. I think I've run, because I was curious what his sentencing guidelines would be if he's convicted on all 3, assuming he doesn't plea. I think he's looking at around 3 to 4 years in a federal penitentiary if he's convicted on all those charges.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. I think that brings us up the timeline to the present.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can do another update video after he's convicted and you guys.
Okay. So I highly suggest watching The Civil Rights Lawyer. He is really, really an awesome source of information, especially for our true crimers. All right. So now let's kind of pivot over to Ronnie Goldie. So Ronnie Goldie, it doesn't look like I found much video from his trial. I did find a little tiny clip of his trial, or it was a news article of the trial. Let me get over here to my thing here. Okay. Let me get down here. All right. So the testimony about, all right, so from what I understand, Goldie was, let me go here, the Kentucky Lantern, which is a newspaper that I have always given high praise to. Kentucky Lantern is the paper who, and they're an investigative paper, and a lot of their investigative journalists have investigated Andy Beshear's campaign donations, the mayor Weddle campaign donations. They are also the ones who broke the story about ARC and the FBI investigation. So the Kentucky Lantern is an amazing source of information, just to let you all know. Kentucky Senate convicts former prosecutor in first impeachment trial in more than a century. This was in 2023. In the first Kentucky Senate impeachment trial in more than a century, senators on Thursday unanimously convicted a former prosecutor who has asked a defendant for nude images in exchange for prosecutorial favors. Does that sound familiar to you guys? I mean, we have an epidemic of dirty old men in Kentucky's legal system. Dirty old men that need to keep their zipper zipped. Blows me away. The Kentucky Supreme Court suspended Ronnie Goldie, the former Commonwealth's attorney for the 21st Judicial Circuit, serving Rowan, Menifee, Bath, and Montgomery counties last year following a Louisville Courier-Journal report. That's another great paper. The Courier-Journal, amazing paper, that found Goldie exchanged hundreds of pages of social media messages with a defendant. The defendant had testified that in exchange for photos, Goldie withdrew warrants and had cases continued. That's how they do it. They do it here all the time. They at least used to, and I'm sure they will continue. But now that old DD has retired, I think that things are gonna be done a little bit differently going forward. And we have Nick Whitaker, who is our new district judge. Nick is a breath of fresh air, I will say. He has not had his law license for really all that long. Nick was, he worked in the PVA office. He worked with probation and parole. He worked with, I think, the drug court at one time. His brother was an investigator for a lawyer. He had a lot of experience in the system. And then he went to law school several years ago. Me and him both were thinking of going at the same time. He went and I didn't. And he, within 2 years, buddy, he had his law license, and they had hired him on at the county attorney's office as an assistant county attorney. Nick is a good dude. Nick is a really good dude. I went to church with his family for many, many years back when I did go to church. And, you know, one of the things that we all who live here, we've all heard the rumors, you know, about certain people. I have never, not the first time, have I ever heard anything, ever, in the least bit negative about our new judge. Even 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you never heard about him, you know, going out on his wife or doing anything like that. You never heard of anything like that. I think he's a really, really good dude. So when somebody has those kinds of morals and values, I think that you can put your trust that they will do, you know, the right thing when nobody's looking. I think that's what makes the difference. For me, it does anyway. All right. So I think we're going to see things going forward differently. I don't think that we're going to see as much as what we have seen in the past. A bipartisan impeachment committee in the Kentucky House of Representatives drafted 3 articles of impeachment against Goldie. which the full House unanimously approved in February. A Senate committee heard evidence against Goldie earlier this month from members of the House Impeachment Committee and adopted findings of fact and a judgment against Goldie. The impeached prosecutor did not come to testify before that Senate committee and had sent a letter of resignation effective February 28th to Governor Andy Beshear. It seems like Beshear's gotten all kinds of resignations in the last several years. All right. The Senate proceeded to unanimously adopt all 3 articles of impeachment and the judgment against Goldie, which means he will be prohibited from holding any public office in Kentucky in the future. What we are actually doing here is overturning an election. No one but the legislature should or can do this, said Senator Michael Nemes, Shepherdsville. Only we the people, through their representatives, the legislature, should decide if that person can hold office in Kentucky again. Well, I don't know. I've never really thought about that part of it. I don't know if I agree with that or not. I don't know. Anybody that wants to send me anything, you can send it to hillbillycrime@gmail.com. Okay. If you guys have any kind of body cam video from your own cases or from somebody else's cases, send it to me. If you got something that you'd like me to look at, send it to me. Also, if any of you all need an attorney, like locally, we've got an attorney who is doing some consulting on some cases. And so we might be able to recommend somebody to you. So if you're struggling, you're having a hard time finding a lawyer in Kentucky that stand up against what we're talking about, send me an email. We'll see what we can do about hooking you up with somebody with a phone number anyway. Okay. Senator Reggie Thomas, Lexington, who was a part of the Senate committee who heard evidence against Goldie, said the process was flawless in providing the impeached prosecutor multiple opportunities to defend himself. At every opportunity, Mr. Goldie was given an opportunity for notice. He was notified twice by this body that we would try him in this case, Thomas said, and I can assure all my colleagues that his due process rights were strictly provided by and in accordance with the Constitution. A call to the office of the attorney representing Goldie was not immediately returned. The last time the state Senate held an impeached trial was in 1888. State Treasurer Honest Dick Tate was impeached. Oh, Honest. That was his nickname. Honest Dick. And he was impeached and tried in his absence for stealing nearly $200,000 in state funds and fleeing. The impeachment committee in the House was also considering whether to draft articles of impeachment against another suspended prosecutor, Rick Bowling in Western Kentucky, who also eventually resigned. The committee did not move forward with drafting articles. Okay, now here's my pushback on that crap. We ought to be the only ones that we the people, through their representatives, the legislature, should decide if that person can hold office in Kentucky again, but you ain't done it in over a century. With all the people that we need to be kicking out of office and never be allowed to hold office again. You're not doing your job there, Mr. Senator Reggie Thomas from Lexington. Oh no, I don't think any of you are doing your job if you've not done this in over a century. I think people need to be evicted from holding public office. I know that's not the right word, but I think they need to be evicted from the position, and I think they should be banned from ever holding office again. You know, we wouldn't have been in the same situation. We had similar ones here. Over in Harlan County, the sheriff that was pew-pewed and unalived. Well, he went to prison for putting a contract out, a hit out on another person that was running for an election. He went to prison. He got out of prison. What's he do? He decides to run. Well, you know, there's some other things that happened, but he gets out of prison. He decides he wants to run for sheriff again, or run for sheriff. So he runs for sheriff, and somebody pew-pews him. He don't even make it through to the election. Well, you know, I don't condone anybody pew-pewing anybody, but there are all kinds of people who should be banned from ever running for office again. You know, that's why we're in the trouble that we're in. Law enforcement officers, police officers, they're able to just resign. They can resign from the situation, from the agency that they're working in. If an internal investigation is started, well, I'll just resign. And that stops the investigation, and they're allowed to then go over to the next town and put their application in over there, and they get their job. They get another job over at this other department. So nobody is ever taken out of the rotation. They just go from one department to the next, to the next, to the next. You got a whole group of police officers in Letcher County that just go from Jenkins to Neon to Whitesburg to the sheriff's department, court security. 5 years down the road, they'll end up back at Jenkins or end up back at Whitesburg. You know, they just travel. Oh, ruin the reputation over here? Well, that's okay. I'll just resign and I'll go to Elkhorn City, or I'll go to Pikeville. Or, you know, it doesn't matter. Nobody ever holds them accountable. If they do, if an investigation is started, well, just resign. Just resign. No problem. Just resign. Okay, so let me see. I got a whole bunch of tabs up here. I want to make sure I got the right one. I have all of the transcripts for Goldie's trial. Okay. So, Kentucky prosecutor sentenced for charges in Moorhead. I'm just going to read this. Ronnie Goldie, former Commonwealth's attorney for Bath, Rowan, Menifee, and Montgomery, was sentenced to 41 months in federal prison for honest services wire fraud. Does that sound familiar? That's also what Scott, what's his name here in Perry County, this prosecutor who was committing sex abuse and he was gay. He was gay, and he was making straight men bring him, do things with him. And I don't know about women. I only know one man because he came forward and spoke to the newspaper and said that he was just traumatized beyond, because he was forced to allow this man to do smeck stuff to him or whatever, because he had his life in his hands. He said, what was I supposed to do? He could have sent me back to prison. I just can't even understand the trauma and the PTSD and the damage that would cause to someone, especially someone who's like in recovery or someone who's attempting to be in recovery. Just the kind of damage that would cause. Do you think that man was charged with any kind of SMEX offense? Do you think he was ever put on the SMEX offender registry? Do you think that he was charged with any rug charges? He was making defendants bring him rugs because he apparently was addicted to methamphetamine. Our prosecutor right here in Hazard, Perry County. That was also a federal investigation. The feds also did that investigation with that prosecutor. I think that initially these cases were few and far between. So the feds I think they are guilty the same way the AG's office was guilty in Sabrina's Benfield's investigation with Sabrina, the way and Jennifer Hill, how they conducted those interviews with those women. It was shameful. It was absolutely shameful. They were talked to like they were suspects instead of victims. Matt Easter was much, much kinder to Benfield's than he was the victim, Benfield's victims. Just unbelievable. 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 Okay, let me get back to this. Okay, so honest services wire fraud. That reminds me, so this pattern, so even though these cases were few and far between, maybe they could have gotten away with wire services fraud on one case, one corruption case. But there are more of these than what they started out with. So now they have established a pattern of leniency when it comes to these freaking prosecutors. Why is this what they're being charged with? Like, that's your favorite go-to charge? Is this wire services fraud? Well, where's the SMEX charges? Where's the theft charges? Where, you know what I'm saying? Where's the rug charges? It just doesn't make any sense to me. When they're doing other things, you're showing your hand, the feds. They're showing their bias. They're showing a pattern of it that's not going to fly with us, because we can see that now. Okay. He was sentenced to 41 months. How many months or how many years is that? Let me pull up my thing. Okay. 41 divided by 12 is 3.5 years. It's under 3.5 years. That's all he got. Scott Blair, the other prosecutor from Hazard that I was talking about, he got 4.5 years. 4.5 years. That's all he got. And I'm sure that the prison time that he got, the 4.5 years of actual prison time that he got, was, in my mind, it seems like that was probably the trade-off for not having to register as a SMEX offender for the rest of his life, for not having rug charges and SMEX abuse charges. We'll just let you serve a few years in prison. I don't think that that's fair. I don't think that's an even trade. I sure don't think that that's fair. Okay. 41 months in federal prison for honest services wire fraud. Use of an interstate facility to carry on unlawful activity and bribery. So they at least did get this guy with bribery. This is the prosecutor in Rowan County, guys. Remember that. And remember this Goldie guy, because he's going to play a huge role in one of our cases that we're looking into. Conviction in February of 2024. So this was just last year. A federal jury found Goldie guilty of 14 counts related to a scheme where he performed official actions or influenced others to benefit a woman with whom he had a sexual relationship in exchange for sexually explicit images and encounters. Like, I don't understand. Why don't you just get you a girlfriend? Get you a dang girlfriend. I mean, right? Can you not get you a woman, a real relationship? I mean, heck, you guys have all heard you can't turn a hoe into a housewife. But, you know, if that's what you're wanting, then get it. If that's all you're wanting is this sexual stuff, there's a way to do that. You don't have to take advantage of defendants. You don't have to abuse your position and your power to coerce someone who is vulnerable and who's in a weaker position, you know, that you are in the position of authority over, you know. It's the power. That's why I keep saying it's the power. But, you know, if that's what their morals and values are, then they don't need to be in that dang position. And they don't need to ever hold an elected office again, because they're obviously not trustworthy to be able to depend on their word or their actions. Now, here's my problem with all of this. The offices. How many of their replacements, whenever these prosecutors went down, somebody else had to come in and take over all those cases, had to take over that office. How many do you think were dismissed? How many of those prosecutors who came in afterwards actually said anything, you know, condemning that former prosecutor and his behavior, his actions? Do you think any of them came in and did anything? Nothing. I'm telling you, there ain't been no cases nowhere that have been dismissed because of these prosecutors. And I think that that's a huge failure. I think that's a huge failure. We've even got Jackie Steele, the prosecutor who's prosecuting Mickey right now. I dug into him some. Jackie Steele was a Commonwealth attorney for Laurel County, which would be London. So he is in that is the Commonwealth or the county that he was a prosecutor in. And it wasn't just that one county. Like he worked a couple counties there. I don't remember what the other one was, but it was in like that central Kentucky area. He also took over Scott Blair's office in Hazard, Perry County. When he came in to take over that office's cases, he made a big statement saying that the office was fine, that one man can't destroy an office, one man can't take down a prosecutor's office, this legal system that we've got, you know, da 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 da. And he didn't dismiss any cases. He didn't condemn Scott Blair's actions. He didn't say, you know, we're not going to stand for this. We're not going to have this in our, you know, like I keep expecting somebody to come out and give this big speech against, you know, those that are sexually abusing our Kentucky citizens. And nobody, none of them. I mean, why? Are you that afraid? What are you afraid of? Having a spine? I mean, my gosh. I guess it's I guess it's just the money. It's money, it's status, it's power. People don't want to make less money than what they're making. You know, like they have, the more money you make, the more money you spend. And, you know, you get put so far up on a pedestal, you know, that it just seems like the head, your head grows so big that you can't even walk through the front door because your head's just so big it won't fit. Yeah, if you ain't hit that like button for us, hit that like button. All right. Sentencing. Chief U.S. District Judge Danny C. Reeves handed down the 41-month sentence on May 24th, 2024. The details of the case. Evidence showed that Goldie used his position to influence official actions benefiting the woman, knowing he was receiving sexually explicit materials in return. He also reportedly requested a judge to release the woman from jail and suggested to a special prosecutor that her drug trafficking charges be reduced. How often do you think that happens around here? I mean, we had a home health aide driving who had fixed a secret compartment in a prosecutor's console of his 2013 Tahoe with official tags, and she's transporting rugs all over the dang Eastern Kentucky line, and she's not arrested. Well, she got arrested, but she wasn't prosecuted. Oh no, Edison Banks made sure she wasn't prosecuted. And I mean, how would the other person on the other end of that phone call, like, what would you say? Like if Banks was to call you and be like, don't you prosecute, don't you put your injury of appearance in on that, and don't you do this, and don't you do that, I'd be like, what? Who are you talking to? Huh? No, Bell County prosecutor, she went in with old DD on a joint motion to dismiss the charges against Edison Banks' home health aide nurse. She had the F word that unalives everybody. She had the big H word that unalives everybody. She had Mary Jane. She even had LSD. I mean, I haven't heard of anybody having LSD in 15 years or longer. I mean, it's just something you don't hear of anymore. But honey, she was loaded down. She didn't go to jail. Oh no, she's too special. She's too special to spend a night in jail. You know, she's not like Sabrina Adkins. She wasn't like Jennifer Hill. Didn't matter for them to spend one night in jail. They could spend a year in jail. Nobody cared. Nobody gave a damn. They could rot in jail and nobody would give a nobody care. None of those people anyway. But don't you dare let his home health aide nurse spend a night in jail. Oh no, that ain't gonna happen. Oh no, Patrick Little is not gonna spend one day in jail. And he didn't. And, you know, people did things regarding that case that they could have lost their own jobs. Why? Why would you stick your neck out for somebody who just pled guilty to abusing 2 children? Why would you do that? I mean, why? Please tell me what could be worth your career. I'm not going to risk my career for nobody, especially covering for somebody who hurt somebody else. Like, and I'm sure not going to condone them. I'm not going to pat them on the back for letting somebody like that go. I ain't going to do it. I ain't going to kiss their hind end. I couldn't live with myself if I did that. There's no way I could lay my head down at night. No way. And go to sleep knowing that somebody like that was my friend, or that they thought that I was their friend. Previous actions. Goldie was impeached by the state Senate in March of 2023 and arrested by the FBI in Moorhead in August of 2023. He was also temporarily suspended from practicing law in September of 2022 and had a state conviction in 23 for offering to help a defendant in exchange for nude photos. No fine imposed. The judge chose not to impose a fine, stating it would be an undue burden on Goldie's family. Well, if that had been anybody else they'd got a fine, they wouldn't give a crap about unduly burdening my family. In short, former Kentucky prosecutor Ronnie Goldie was sentenced to 41 months in prison after being convicted of bribery and wire fraud charges stemming from his actions as Commonwealth attorney. All right, let's see if this is the one. In just a minute. Okay. Oh, geez. So Pete Allen just about unalived himself. May 24th. Former Eastern Kentucky Commonwealth's attorney Ronnie Goldie was sentenced. Nope. Goldie was found guilty on charges of wire fraud, bribery, and the Travel Act. I didn't see that in that other. He was impeached. Also, Goldie was convicted at the state level for the nude photo stuff. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to talk a lot about Goldie because I've got all of these transcripts and stuff. We're going to look at his trial. We're going to look at his testimony. We are going to look at that whole circle there in Rowan County. So if any of you all out there have any information on the legal system in Rowan County, the judges that sit in Rowan County, the prosecutors, there have been several prosecutors in Rowan that we're looking at. So if any of you all have any personal knowledge or experience with this group in Rowan County, Kentucky, or anywhere surrounding that county, send me an email. hillbillycrime@gmail.com. All right. And remember, I put all of the links in the description. So, yeah, Julie, there's a ton of links in the description of my video, of this video. If you just go over to the description, you'll find all the links, and there's several of them in there. Maybe even some we didn't look at tonight, so you can go through there and look. I've got the actual lawsuits, and we're gonna look through them too, some this week. So thank you, Jesus, for another day being able to come together in your house, Lord. I'm just so grateful. I'm so thankful for all the blessings that you give us, Lord. I'm thankful for you saving my soul. I'm thankful for you turning my life around, Lord. There ain't none of us promised tomorrow, and there were so many that didn't make it. So many people that I went to school with, and people that just didn't make it out of addiction, Lord. And I'm so grateful. I'm thankful, Lord. I'm just so thankful. I love you, Jesus, so much. I love you, I love you, I love you. Thank you, Lord, for dying on the cross for my sins. I pray that you forgive me for my sins every single day, Lord. I sure ain't perfect, and I fall short every single day. I just pray that you help me to be a better person tomorrow than I was today. So many of our hillbillies, Lord, our viewers are going through their own problems and issues, Lord, and I just pray that you will heal them and touch their lives according to their need. You know each and every one of us. You know how many hairs each of us have on our head, Lord. You know all the need that we have. I pray for the physical, I pray for the spiritual and the emotional, but the spiritual above all. I pray that you soften the hearts of the lost so they will find their way to you. So many of us find you on our knees, Lord. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that it took me to come into my knees to find you. You now help us stand, Lord. Stand on your solid rock. Hallelujah, 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 Lord. I praise you, Jesus. Until we come again tomorrow, Lord, we give you all praise, honor, and glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Carrie. She said, did you get Carrie Sullivan? Now, somebody told me one time that I genderized them, and I don't, male or female. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Did you get rid of your dog problem and then full moon you received? Yeah, they're not staying here. So I don't know. we ain't got to deal with that right now. I did have an interesting interaction with state police. I heard my dogs barking and carrying on, and looked out the window, and there's state cop standing on my porch this afternoon right before the show. And with one of my neighbors standing out there with him. And I reckon he was drinking and was outside and was doing some really scary stuff. And some people called the police. And so the police showed up. And I had let him use my weed eater earlier. And I don't know. I tried to help him. I tried to get him not to go to jail. But that cop, the state cop that was with him, he was actually the one that came last time that they were up here. And I talked to him then too, and he's really short. I forgot to even look at his name. And he was, but his personality, like he's not nice. He is not nice, but he's not mean. He's not aggressive, but he's not like trying to be your friend. He's not trying to be nobody's friend. But I like that little fella. I like that little fella. I don't know. He's given me a decent first impression. Anyway, all right, guys. Well, you have a great rest of your night. We will see you tomorrow. We've got to start with a trial coming up. Tomorrow's Monday, so we should have some trials starting this week. If anybody knows of a trial that's getting ready to start, shoot us a message or an email and let us know. We got to figure out when to start our trial watch back. All right, y'all. Remember, we've got our merch shop open, so grab you a t-shirt or a hat or something. Yes, we have PayPal, we have Venmo, we have Cash App. We desperately need your help with supporting our channel. We cannot do it without you guys. We cannot do it without you guys. I thought somebody sent me one a minute ago. I thought I saw something come through, but yes, there it is. Miss Cheryl. Thank you, honey. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I got you PayPal. Bless you, bless you, bless you. It helps keep this channel going, y'all. All right, and hit that like button for us. It helps get us out to a whole new audience of people that don't know about hillbilly crime. And don't forget, we can always use gift memberships for our hillbillies who are on who are older and who are on fixed incomes and who cannot afford them. So we are a big fan of gift memberships. All right, John Hester, honey, happy Sunday, everyone. Thank you. Adventures of Pete and Moore super sticker. Thank you, bless you, bless you. And Cherry and Max, one of our big supporters here lately, gifted 10 Hillbilly Crime memberships. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Bless you. And check out our TikTok and our shorts, because we're putting You Might Be a Hillbilly If. We've got a whole new Reels series that we're putting out on TikTok and do some of them on Facebook, but we're trying to focus on TikTok, getting TikTok up there. We need to get it monetized. So y'all go over to TikTok and follow us on Hillbilly Crime over there. All right, guys. Well, you have a great evening, and we will see you tomorrow. Peace out, Girl Scout. Bye.